Hello Exiles, got a new build for you. This time it's a life-stacking Crest of Desire Inquisitor using various spells, but mainly Stormburst, Divine Ire, and Penance brand of Dissipation. I'll elaborate on why I chose those three skills in a bit, but the build is very generic, so you could make it work for just about any spell if you want. You're currently watching what is probably the most badly played Fjord I've ever done, but the fact that I basically just face tank through it hopefully shows the strength of the build. The core interactions and uniques of the build are fairly standard for a life stacker. Dissolution of the Flesh lets us use Petrified Blood and Pain Attunement while ignoring the downsides. Wrathpith Globe gives us a ton of spell damage and crit, and we use Adorned with Magic Jewels for life and crit multi. Even after the nerf, it's still worth using. We're also using a Demon Stitcher for a good chunk of life and cast speed, and we can ignore the sacrifice just like Wrathpith. And finally, we have our recently returned Lord and Savior, Kaum's Heart, unnerfed back to 1000 life, which was the main reason I wanted to do this. Now the main issue with Kaum's, of course, is that with no sockets, where do you put your 6-link? We're using a shield, so we can't do any kind of staff, and so we use Crest of Desire. This Heist Helm has one maximum socket, but whatever's in that socket deals double damage and gains up to 8 gem levels and 50 quality. The best candidates for skills to use with this helm are skills that hit, scale with gem levels, have particularly impactful quality stats, and most importantly, do not disproportionately benefit from certain supports. For example, you won't be able to take advantage of spell cascade overlaps. Most projectile skills want to be able to use projectile supports, and to a lesser extent, most self-cast skills want to use spell echo. So what does this leave us with? Mainly channeling and brand skills. And so we're back to the 3 skills I mentioned at the start. First of all, I ended up going a Fizz conversion angle, and so it's hard to try and compare any pure elemental spells without significant respecking and regearing, but anyway. Stormburst creates orbs as you channel that jump around your cursor and deal area damage at a set interval of 0.4 seconds. Each orb has its own lifetime, and so duration becomes another damage scaler, but only at breakpoints of 0.4 seconds. When you stop channeling, orbs will explode for 75% of damage per 0.4 seconds of remaining duration. This basically means that they kind of cash in 75% of the total expected damage they would deal. So, for clear, you can just channel 1 or 2 orbs and release to blow up most mobs, and for a single target, it reduces your damage downtime whenever you have to stop channeling and reposition. It's still not the smooth skill to play, you still have to aim, and enemies that move a lot are annoying to deal with, but it has the highest single target potential out of these 3 skills. Divine Ire is my main clear skill, especially the transfigured version that's just the beam, no damage while channeling stages. You get a lot of beam width from quality, and it can cover a good chunk of the screen. It's still not the smoothest clear, but it's really satisfying to channel up and chunk for like 15 million damage, especially with Herald of Ash. And finally, Penance brand of Dissipation. Obviously nerfed from Affliction League, but it's still a strong skill damage-wise and mechanically. I'd say it's the best overall bossing skill for this build because you just set and forget and can run around while it does damage. The main downside is just absolute trash tier clear. Herald of Ash can't save it, and I think it just needs a Synth Explode mod. Honorable mention to Tornado of Elemental Turbulence. I know it's a popular choice with this helm, but personally I found its damage lacking and also found myself constantly outrunning it and having to sit back and wait. Now, for defensive layers. The build doesn't have much in the way of layers per se, it's mainly just having 16k life, which really is not to be underestimated. And no matter where most builds get 4,000 or 5,000 life and then invest in traditional defensive layers, we are just baseline 3 or 4 times tankier. And if you've been around, you'll know it's far from easy to get 3 to 4 times tankier with traditional defensive layers. I do manage to get 90 max res with Mage Blood, which feels good, and my LA max hit is 180,000. The main weakness though is physical damage, as I'm unable to fit any significant amount of armor, but that's relative, I'm still able to tank a Shaper Slam. And now for the elephant in the room, Dissolution of the Flesh. If you don't know how this rule works, it gives a big 30% more multiplier to max life, but changes how you take damage. Instead of directly losing life, you reserve life until you've taken no damage for 2 seconds. This is what lets us disregard our actual life value to take advantage of Pain Attunement and Petrified Blood, but also means that no matter how tanky you are, you still need to stay on your toes and maybe occasionally run away and wait for your life to unreserve. Personally, I'm a fan of this more active playstyle, but I totally understand that most people don't vibe with it. When you say tanky, people expect something that can brainlessly AFK face tank stuff, but unfortunately this build is just not that. Alright, here we are. This is the POB. I'm just going to go over the tree, the gear, how to craft it, and anything else I think of. So this is the tree. I'm an Inquisitor. We're going down this Strength, Int, Crit, and Inevitable Judgment. And then Consecrated Ground, increased damage taken, Augury of Penitence, more increased damage taken, and a little more elemental damage reduction. I was initially planning to do Instruments of Zeal, but it's kind of gimmicky, and I also ended up liking Frostblink of Wintry Blast more than Shield Charge, so now I don't even have an attack to proc this in the first place. And again, these two just are a lot more consistent and feel a lot better. The rest of the tree is mostly just pathing to life because I'm a life stacker. That's the most efficient stat. There's also crit, a little bit of fizz conversion here. Unwavering stance for stun immunity. Again, some max res investment. There's pain attunement for low life. And then other than that, it's just jewels for life and crit multi with Adorned. Again, it's still very worth using after the nerf. One thing you have to make sure of is there's a breakpoint to increase the 7 max life to 13. Of course, you could go for a perfect one to make it 14, but that's really not worth doing. Yeah, and also since jewels are so efficient for me, I ended up picking up a 5 passive voices with 3 more jewels. Again, you could go a 3 passive, but I don't want to pay like 50 divines for 2 passive points. This character is not at that level of investment yet. You'll see that I have so many jewels. I have 9 jewels. I have so many that they're starting to fall off. You know, each one, you can see 6% more damage. It's not that insane. So an alternative is you could do a Grand Spectrum setup with min Endurance, min Frenzy, and 15 life. The thing is, these are very expensive, but it ends up, I remember trying it, simulating it in PoE, it ends up being roughly the same damage, but then you gain 3 endurance charges, and you know, that little bit of his damage reduction would go a long way, and of course LA damage reduction as well. Yeah, it's an option. It's a good option. Okay, so now for my gear. So of course I have my uniques. I have Wrathpith with a reduced crit reduction and corruption. I have my Crest of Desire. The quality roll isn't super important. It depends. Stormburst has breakpoints at every 10 quality. Divine Ire and Penance Brand don't have any breakpoints. It's just the more you can get, the better it is. Comes Heart, I have a max res corruption. I also swap this for a crit reduction corruption depending on which map I'm running. Demon Stitcher, these gloves are really common. Nobody ever uses them, so I was able to get some pretty good corrupts. And now for my rare gear, my wand is +1 fizz and double fizz as extra. You know, because Crest of Desire gives so many gem levels, I don't need that much gem level scaling. You get your gem to level 30. That's like the soft cap. Gem level scaling after level 30 kind of falls off. And so double fizz as extra is much more efficient for me. The other thing of note is Shepherd of Souls. This is a Keystone runecraft using some power runes. Let me pull up the wiki for it. Here we go. Non-Vowel, non-aura skills have 80% less soul costs, and they have 100% increased soul cost per Vowel skill used in the past 8 seconds. I'm using this with Vol RF. Basically what it does is it makes my Vol RF cost, instead of 40 souls, 8 souls, and then it costs 16 souls for the next 8 seconds. But if I wait for those 8 seconds, the cost goes back down to 8 souls. And so if I scale duration enough, I can basically get 100% uptime on Vol Righteous Fire for up to 5 uses. I think this is a pretty interesting tech. I saw it on a Captain Lance video on a Righteous Fire character he did. But the thing is, Vol Righteous Fire sacrifices life, which makes it kind of clunky to use on an actual RF build because you're going to be constantly on really low life. But again, we're Dissolution, so we don't care about the sacrifice. So it makes it pretty nice to use. My boots are not really anything special, just some life, chaos res, move speed, and strength. Oh, right, I forgot to mention. So with Dissolution of the Flesh, again, you have to not take damage for 2 seconds to unreserve your life. This means any kind of damaging ailment you really want to avoid or get immunity to. I'm handling most of these using Mage Blood and Flask Efficacies. So you see Bleeding, Corrupting Blood, Poison, and yep, that's it. And then Ignite, I'm dealing with using 10 Strength Tattoos for reduced Ignite duration. This is effectively immunity to Ignite. I think the only thing in the game that makes monsters have increased Ignite duration would be some Expedition remnants, but I'm not running Expedition with this character, so I don't have to worry about it. You could also use the Jewel... what's it called? Fire Song. You could use Fire Song to get full elemental immunity, but the reason nobody uses this and everybody uses Storm Shroud is because Storm Shroud also applies to chilled and shocked ground, while this one doesn't. So yeah, I don't use it. My amulet is, again, not really anything crazy. Just life, cast speed, crit multi, chaos res. If I wanted to throw more money at this, I would try to get an influenced one and get Fizz's extra prefix, but that's kind of a pain, so I'm not going to do it. So my ring, I'm reflecting with Calandra's Touch. It's got recoup, cast speed, life, and chaos res, and minus mana cost. So the reason I have recoup is because with Petrified Blood, let's see, yeah, 40% of life loss below half-life is prevented, and then 75% of life loss prevented this way is lost over 4 seconds. Basically what that means is with Dissolution, I don't care about the downside of this, right? It's 40% damage reduction all the time. The only thing is the life loss can kill me if I sacrifice my life and it gets low enough, right? So I need enough recoup to offset that, and 75% of 40 means I need 30% recoup, and then I don't have to worry about it. And so that's why I have recoup on my rings. I crafted these on a base. You do, I forget what it's called, but it's just the increased life mod fossil until you hit T1 life and T1 recoup on the same base. Annul down to 4 mods. Fracture, I hit the recoup, and then I think at that point it already had the life roll and the mana, and so I did suffixes cannot be changed and a harvest add remove caster. It happened to hit T1 cast speed and then also didn't remove the life. How did I get the chaos res on there? I forget. I think I did the same thing for chaos res and it hit a decent tier and didn't remove the life, so I got pretty lucky with this. But yeah, it's a nice ring. And then of course Mage Blood, because Mage Blood is really good. The problems with Dissolution I mentioned, bleed, poison, corrupted blood, you can solve without a Mage Blood. You could get, what's it called? You can get an Abyssal Socket and the Essence cannot be poison mod with fossils on boots. And then you can get Avoid Bleed on Abyssal Jewel and here, or with Eldritch Implicits on boots. But yeah, Mage Blood just makes it a lot easier. And it makes you faster, and it gives me 90 max res, so yeah, it's nice. It's not necessary, it's nice. Yeah, one more thing, Demon Stitcher isn't really necessary. You could use a pair of gloves like this. So strength, life, chaos res, cast speed while focused mod, and then fizz conversion to lightning instead of this fizz conversion to fire. Just gives me some better shocks. And then unnerve, because since we're an Inquisitor, we're ignoring elemental resistance. Increased damage taken on enemies ends up being a really efficient damage stat. So yeah, a pair of gloves like this would be a pretty good replacement. Okay, and finally, gem links real quick. Frostblink, Assassin's Mark, Frostblink of Wintry Blast. This actually feels pretty good if you have enough cast speed, which I do. My auras are Herald of Ash, Petrified Blood, and Hatred, as well as an Enlightened 3, which gets a +1 from my Demon Stitcher, which just barely lets me reserve everything without having to get any reservation efficiency, and then Valar F with more duration. Finally, my skill choice. Oh, right, yeah, I forgot to show some respecs for different skills. So this is, again, this is the tree for Divine Ire of Disintegration. If I do Storm Burst, not Storm Brand, Storm Burst, I had a 21-23 because my Crest of Desire is a 47 quality, and 23 quality, that adds up to a breakpoint of 10 quality, a breakpoint of duration. Let's go max channeled orbs. And then for Stormburst, you can already see I still had the Anoint, but the only change I have to do for Stormburst is speccing this skill duration here. I think you can unspec these nodes and some of these extra small life nodes. And yeah, that's it. And you can see 45 million DPS because let's look at the duration scaling. 4 point. Wait, that's not quite. Oh, right, I forgot the mastery. 10% more skill effect duration. 4.8 second duration. This is 12 intervals of 0.4 seconds. So it's, you can see it's a 13% or 13 times DPS multiplier. That's, I don't think it's quite that much. It's purely theoretical because not all of the orbs necessarily overlap. Oh wait, I think, yeah, the shock effect is from the Divine Ire. Stormburst doesn't hit that hard. You can see my shock effect is only 8, so it's pretty much nothing. Yeah. So now let's look at Penance Brand of Dissipation. I didn't have a 21 gem because those are like 10 divines. I only had a 2020. Yeah, so we're not scaling duration with this. And we need to go to Rune Binder. I take this wheel, and I take this wheel, and then I just make up the points by unspecking these 3 jewels, and then I replace the voices with just a random jewel. And yeah, that's about the same level. Let's configure. I have 2 brands and 20 energy, 26 million DPS. It's less than Stormburst, the Stormburst theoretical maximum, but you know, you can move around, you don't have to think about it, you don't have to stand still. So again, Penance Brand is very good for overall bossing. So yeah, that's the build. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're not put off by Dissolution, I encourage you to give it a try. You know, again, it's a very generic build. You can plug in pretty much any spell in the game to something like this and make it work. And yeah, who knows? Maybe there's some spell out there that is much better in this setup than I haven't thought of. So yeah, thanks for watching.